What's up, everybody? Tim Madden here from Hedgepost Media. We're going to be talking public land, and I'm literally giving away all my secrets. So here's the project I have planned. What I'm doing is I'm going to give you guys the exact public property I'm going to be hunting. Tonight, I'm showing you a graph. It's going to be splitting the entire property into quadrants. What you guys are going to do is through Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, you guys are going to vote what quadrant you want me to hunt in. Now, this is a particular piece of property I've hunted quite a bit. I'm slightly familiar with all the quadrants. I'm going to go over all the quadrants here in just a second. So this is most likely going to be a 3-part series that will entirely be published after the season. I'm going to take you through part 1. Part 1 will be preseason. It's going to be everything scouting related. I'm going to show you the exact trees I pick in my quadrant for each of the wind directions and why. Bedding areas, buck sign, anything like that. And this is mostly going to be targeted to big mature bucks. Part 2 will be the actual season. You'll see all the time I spend in this tree. I'll take you through each part of the year, most likely in October, early season, a rut portion, and then a post-rut portion, late season, which is actually my favorite time on public land. Then there'll be a part 3. Part 3 is going to be post-season. I'm going to take you through everything that happened, why it happened, and what we learned from this entire process. Now, I know I'm going to be burning this spot up. People are going to know the exact spot. If you're out of state, obviously you can use this to your advantage. You can go hunt my exact trees the following year. But I'm going through all this effort to hopefully help some beginners or anybody else to help sharpen their skills on what I do to be successful on public land. So right now, I'm going to pull up the map I have designated. So this is the Jim Edgar Panther Creek map. This is the map they actually give you on the site. I'm going to zoom in. And Jim Edgar Panther Creek is located here in central Illinois. It's about a 45-minute drive for me. Not too bad. Like I said, it's a farm it's a property I'm fairly familiar with, but plenty of learning to be done. This isn't the property I usually hunt, and that's why I'm using it for this project. I've divided it into quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. I believe this property is, I want to say, roughly 26,000 acres. It should tell me on here, actually. Let's see. For the use of this video, we'll just say it's roughly 20,000 acres. And I've somewhat divided it. You'll notice they're not perfectly proportioned, but I used some roads so that we have good reference points. So I'm going to walk you through each quadrant. So quadrant 1 is this northwest portion. It's probably the largest huntable area portion. So what I'm going to do, just to kind of show you guys the quadrants, help you decide which one you want me to hunt. I'll pull up the Google map here. So this is the Google map. Quadrant 1 is designated by this road here, as if it were to continue entirely south, was my east-west line, and then my south line is this road here. So the property, this quadrant is roughly going to run this area here. Now, from what I know already in this quadrant, it's going to give me some CRP grasses here, and these waterways are mostly deep draws. This whole area in here is super low. It comes up kind of high into these field areas here, butts up to some private ground over here, and there's also a little pocket that a lot of people overlook, and it's down in, let's see. Yeah, it's down in here somewhere. So there's a whole lot of area there to hunt. Like I said, mostly bottoms through the middle. A lot of this property is ag field, but it kind of comes up here. I know right through here is super steep area that comes back up to the fields. So some pretty good pinches, a lot of topography to look at on this quadrant, and some other interesting features. And then to bump over to quadrant 2. Quadrant 2 we're looking at is going to be from here down and across up in here. Now I'm pretty sure there's some no hunt area down in here. A lot of alfalfa and clover you can see they plant out here, which is super nice. Some water, looks like there's a small lake here. I kind of like to use those. Not quite getting to use this big lake yet. But yeah, I know this, I actually haven't, this is probably the quadrant I'm least familiar with. I haven't actually been back on this road that I can remember. but I do know this area fairly well. What I don't like about this quadrant in particular is it doesn't really butt up to a whole lot of private ground. It's mostly just open field. Now quadrant 3 is a little bit longer, north to south. Get my references here. Quadrant 3, so we're looking at our north-south line here. It's going to come down here and cross here. So I've got all this area. This is going to be a little bit interesting of a quadrant. If you guys pick this one, I would probably take big advantage of this lake. That comes right through the middle of the quadrant. And I know it crosses the road here, which butts up to some really good property. I believe that's actually part of the Gridley, I think it's the Grigsby lease. If you know, the Drury brothers leased out that lease several years ago. I don't know who has it now. I think even there was another big name that leased that property. Maybe Red Arrow, I can't remember. But that's big name property. And here's actually, you can see the Grigsby farm. I'm pretty sure they own that property that butts up there. So there's got to be some big bucks running that. I do know that it's hunted pretty hard though because of that. It's common knowledge. So down in here, we're going to be, there's a lot of area down in here. I've hunted this area some. Another couple water ponds there. I know it gets low through here. And then the rest of this is fairly level from what I remember. So not as much topography to use. But I do like that lake, the idea that you can use that water. That was actually quadrant 4. I got messed up. That's quadrant 4. Got ahead of myself. Now quadrant 3. Another one I probably wouldn't consider myself super familiar with. Quadrant 3, we're looking at our north-south line here, north and south line, east and west. So I'm getting this area here. Now I know you can't really actually see the park lines, especially in that quadrant. I'm not super familiar with them, but I know it's kind of this area here. What I do like about this is I don't think there's as much parking in this quadrant of the park, which I see as an advantage. That's one disadvantage to Jim Edgar Panther Creek. It is super accessible. It didn't used to be, but it's super accessible now. It seems like once you start getting a good distance away from one parking spot, all of a sudden you're closer to another one. So I don't like that on public land. It's great for a lot of people, not the style I usually choose to hunt. But quadrant 3 is interesting. I'm not super familiar with it. I know it gets pretty low down through here. I know that stretch is pretty low. But other than that, I don't know a whole lot about it. So if you want to really challenge me, probably pick quadrant 3. Similar idea. That one does actually come pretty close to some private ground there. But quadrant 1 definitely butts up to the most private ground. So I'm going to pull that actual Jim Edgar Panther Creek map back up. So there's the actual map again. So keep in mind, quadrant 1, that was the quadrant that butted up to the most private ground, and I think it would also have the most topography. Quadrant 3 would probably be a close second as far as topography. Quadrant 2, remember that was the one I'm probably, quadrant 2 and 3 I'd say I'm equally unfamiliar with. Quadrant 2 will be one of the most challenging ones. It butts up to no private property, pretty much just open fields, but I do think that it's probably not hunted as hard. Quadrant 4, I will tell you one other little thing about quadrant 4 that I overlooked. Quadrant 4 is on the southeast corner. Now, the disadvantage to being on the southeast corner is it's the closest drive from Springfield, which is the biggest town around. And it's also closer to some other towns along the way. So that area gets hunted quite a bit because the difference between quadrant 4 and quadrant 1 in a drive is about another 15-minute drive because there's no direct way to get anywhere. So quadrant 4 is heavily hunted, but I did have that big lake we could use to our advantage and some different topography, a little bit of different varying topography on the south side. So what is kind of nice about 4 is there's 2 basic separate areas. So how are you going to vote on what quadrant you want me to hunt? You can comment on our YouTube video. You can comment if you're seeing this video on Facebook, and you can also comment. I'm going to post this map as a picture on Instagram. So you can also comment there. So between those 3 formats, I'm going to pull all the votes together and decide what quadrant I'm going to hunt. It is July 11th while I'm making this video. Hopefully this video will post July 12th. And I will pick by, we'll give it a week, July 19th. and then I'm gonna start scouting right away. I'm gonna get maybe a couple cameras with a lockbox and a lot of feet on the ground. Like I said, I can't devote my whole season to this project, but I did want to give it several days throughout the season just to show all the different parts of the season, times of the year, and how I hunt varying through those times of year. This is designed to be super informative, mostly geared towards beginners, but it will also have plenty of content that will be beneficial to people who are already hunting public land, maybe consider themselves experienced. I just want to take advantage of the fact that I'm super privileged in being able to hunt some pretty good private ground. So I want to give you guys all the nitty-gritty details on how I hunt the public land. So I hope you guys will stick around and follow this project. I'm going to really enjoy making it for you, and I'll catch you in the next one.